Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, whoever you are, wherever you are. I hope that your coffee is hot, your tea just right. My name is Grover. This is Grover Reads the News. And today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. I'm writing you from a bright, cool afternoon where the leaves on tall trees dance ever slightly in deep coordination with the wind. It's been some weeks since I've last been here to give you an update, because it turns out that rebuilding daily life in a new country and integrating my children into a new school and into an immigration system and a new home is a lot. It has taken all of my presence and energy as I'm in month 2.5 of my life shifted over here to the Netherlands. And while I was tending to the deep work of life in these times, I was seeing and holding how the fascist power grab happening in the United States has continued to escalate rapidly. And so I have an update for you if you'd like to listen. If not, I wish you well and will offer again within the next month or so. And with that, let's face the news together. First, I have an update about detention centers and conditions for immigrants in the United States. After widespread protests and lawsuits, the airstrip turned into a mass jail where people who are immigrants were exposed to horrendous conditions inside a cage that is on an airstrip in a swamp full of alligators and Burmese pythons. What's being called alligator Alcatraz is being slowly reduced in size and dismantled, but a recent ruling from federal district judges with 2 Trump appointees have ruled that it can legally stay open. And similarly, quickly assembled detention centers of mass exclusion are being propped up around the United States. Japanese American activists blast the U.S. government for creating an immigrant detention center at Fort Bliss, a Texas site used to imprison thousands of innocent Japanese American people simply because of their ethnicity during World War II. Ann Burroughs, president and CEO of the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles, told NBC News, quote, "It is inconceivable that the United States is once again building concentration camps, denying the lessons learned 80 years ago," unquote. This level of cooperation between ICE and state officials marks a new chapter in the scale of cooperation, reports the Marshall Project. Historically, agreements between federal ICE agencies and states were used to allow state prisons and county jails to hold individuals after they'd been arrested on criminal charges or had finished criminal sentence in the state before the state would pass them off to ICE to proceed through immigrations and customs enforcement processes. The agreement had never been used to run full-scale facilities long-term, says the Marshall Project, but they are being created now in Indiana, Illinois, Louisiana, and other sites. And the federal administration is giving them nicknames that either draw on previous or sometimes ongoing eras of torture and horror, such as Angola Prison, or associate these new detention facilities with cultural venues like the, quote, Speedway Slammer that was built in Indiana near the Indianapolis 500 racetrack. ICE continues to move from one major city to the next to execute mass arrests of people who are immigrants, at times arresting U.S. citizens as well, and green card holders who are in the country with all the paperwork that they can get, They generally are profiling people based on race or where they work and arresting people who are going through the steps of immigration as they were directed. This week, ICE moved into my home state, Massachusetts, and Trump posted on social media that there's going to be, quote, war on Chicago, and other clearly hostile statements through his social media site that he owns. He alluded to bombing the city. These statements he later took back, but only after letting it sit out there for more than 24 hours. He has said that he will deploy federal troops in Chicago and Baltimore soon after deploying troops in Washington, D.C. earlier this month and LA the months before. These federal deployments of troops in cities where the governor and the mayor have not requested them are in particular supposed to target people experiencing unsheltered homelessness and generally to intimidate people in these majority progressive, often majority people of color cities. Tens of thousands of people protested in the streets this weekend in Washington, D.C. to oppose a federal takeover of their police force and the deployment of federal troops onto the streets. Groups of volunteers, armed with only their smartphones and medical supplies, have organized into, quote, night patrols, unquote, to watch the federal officers as they interact with D.C. residents, trying to prevent false arrests and harassment from troops, and to document these things if they can't prevent them. Grand juries, which are composed of D.C. residents, have also refused to indict defendants in at least 6 cases. Incidents they have refused to indict their fellow citizens for include things like throwing a sandwich at a federal officer. Next, I have news about Gaza. Since I last gave an update, the situation of life and mass death in Gaza remains dire. On the 9th of September, the Israeli military ordered all of the nearly 1 million residents of Gaza City to leave ahead of a ground assault in a region where the vast majority of structures and infrastructure has already been destroyed. 1 in 4 Gazans are experiencing the most severe stage of hunger without enough food, and with people continuing to be shot dead while standing in line for meager food distribution now controlled by Israel's military and a U.S. contractor. In the last 2 weeks, at least 70 people have died in Gaza City from starvation, reports the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And finally, I have nature news about cross-species listening. When plants are distressed, such as when they dry out from lack of water, they put up air bubbles and make other adjustments within their tissues that puts out ultrasonic noise we humans can't hear without special equipment. But scientists recently proved that cross-species listening is taking place, and the moths are listening in on the plants. The research reveals a surprising new way that animals can sense and respond to cues from the environment. In this case, insects picking up sounds from stressed plants, reports Mindy Weisenberger at CNN. Scientists presented moths with 2 plants, one fresh and one dried out. Over and over again, moths picked the fresh, healthy plants to lay their eggs in and hang out in. Then, they put moths next to 2 healthy plants, but one of the healthy plants had ultrasonic noise played through a speaker near it. Even though female moths in the experiment had never laid eggs before, and therefore had no prior experience deciphering acoustic cues from plants, they not only recognized the plant sounds, but preferred quieter plants for their first time egg laying. Quote, "It's really cool and surprising discovery," says Dr. Zhang, an adjunct associate professor of physiology at the University of Pennsylvania's Perelman School of Medicine. Quote, I've known for a long time that plants give off smells when they're in trouble, like when they're being eaten by bugs or are thirsty. These smells help attract helpful insects or scare away pests. What's new here is that sound may give extra information, like a warning signal, especially when there's no smell or the smell is hard to detect. How do we listen for warning signals, for opportunities, and for silence across time, space, and species, I wonder? I leave us here with this curiosity to hold on to, as the noise of the world is quite loud. Thank you for joining me to face some news today. I hope you are able to witness wonder this week, be it from a leaf changing hues before your eyes, or a baby goose awkwardly stumbling into a pond, or a human being alive in their power who shows up to care for another with bravery and grace. I'll be back with you sometime in the next month, I hope, to share another update. And if you'd like to know what my move was about or how I did it, or just want to keep up with me as a person and a writer and a creator, you can do that over groverwehman-brown.substack.com. Thank you to those who support the show financially as paying subscribers. We've been doing this almost a year, and while the news has been really hard to face, I've been glad to be in good company and that it's sparked conversations with many of you in person. Until next time, be well.